Hi, my name's Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we're looking at Res Arcana, a 2 to 4 player competitive engine building or tableau building game, which means that you're going to be expanding and gaining access to more powers and more actions the more you play throughout this game. It also has elements of variable player power because each of the alchemical mages that players have access to will have their own box of tricks. And then the best version of this game also has some card drafting because during setup you're going to be picking the right cards for you to enable your game plan. So you play as the aforementioned mages looking to vie for control of places of power and monuments. That is literally all the bleeding fluff in the rulebook. But is there more to this than meets the eye? Well, let's see how this plays and whether this could be the next game for you. So the object of the game is to be the player that first gets to 10 or more victory points and then have the most amount of points at the end of that round of play. So you're going to be playing as alchemists or alchemical mages, and each player will be given 2 mages to choose from. And then once you've decided, each mage is going to have its own variable player power that will help dictate the way you might decide to play the game. Each player will also have a deck of 8 artifact cards. And artifacts are going to be some of the starting ways that you're going to start building up essences. Now essences are the lifeblood or currency of Res Arcana if you'd like, and each player starts with 1 of each essence. So here we have blue that represents calm. Now finalising the setup, and each turn a player is going to take 1 of the 8 available magic items from the communal display for use on 1 turn only, and at the end of each turn you'll then swap that magic item out for another one from the display. So it's fairly straightforward, the turn sequence. At the start of every turn all players are going to collect essences from their cards that they paid for and they can use. Generally some of the magic items allow you to obtain essences at the start of the turn, but also as you play through, some of your components you'll actually stockpile essences on so that you can collect them in this first phase on future turns. Then play proceeds to the action phase, and this is where, starting with the first player, each player is going to take like a micro action if you like, and then pass to the player to the left, and round you go. So actions are broadly broken down into 2 different types. You're either going to be playing a card, be it an artifact from your hand, or obtaining a place of power or monument, and you're going to be doing so by paying the component cost in the top left hand corner of the card. So let's just say the player wanted to start by playing this artifact Hand of Glory card from their hand. They'd need to take 1 life and 1 death essence from their pool and place it back in the supply. Then they'd place that card in front of them, and they can then use that power as a separate action on their turn. So powers tend to be the second type of thing you can do, and they look like these rows of formulas or symbols. Now some of the symbols in the game take some getting used to, but there's a handy player reference card that will help you learn what all of the symbols mean. But the majority of them mean, fairly straightforward things, like, for example, going back to this Hand of Glory card, you can tap it or exhaust it by turning it sideways to gain 2 death essences, but it's also going to give all of your opponents 1 death essence as well. So a lot of artifact cards tend to allow you to gain essences or manipulate them, turning them into different types. And then as you go on throughout the game, you're looking to obtain the places of power, which are going to be the primary means to gain victory points.
Blah, 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 blah.
Not dissimilarly, the monuments you can gain access to all cost 4 gold, and you'll see that there's a slight premium on gold essences than on any other essence, apart from maybe life. But they'll give you points and also access to other powers as well. And if anytime you don't like the 2 monuments that are face up, you can take a punt, a dice roll if you like, on drawing the top card of the monument deck and taking that instead. You go until 1 player decides to pass. Now generally you take all of your actions before you pass, but you'll see this nifty first player token also doubles as a pass token. So the first player on any given turn has access to this, and whoever has it in their possession automatically has 1 victory point. But as soon as you pass, you also gain that token, and that might be the difference to get you up to the 10 points you need to end the game. So strategically passing may be of benefit to you. So rounds are going to continue like that, as I've said, until at least one player at the end of a round has got 10 points or more. And then, as you'd expect, the end of that round, everyone will tally up the number of points they have, and the player with the most points is then the victor. So that's how this game plays. What did I think of it? So who is this for? Well, it's a medium weight game, but in the sense that it's actually fairly straightforward to learn and easy to get to the table. But you're going to need quite a few playthroughs to understand and make the best use of all the cards on offer. If you like the idea of a slow burn engine builder that very quickly ramps into the stratosphere and asks you to race to victory, then there's probably something here for you. You might want to consider this if you like to Paper Towels, published by Catch Up Games, or Gizmos, published by Simon. Now you can call yourselves come on all you like, but I'm sticking to my guns. So in terms of gameplay, well, they've certainly done a lot of things right in designing this game, and these are a few that stood out to me. Firstly, the way they've crafted this universal language of symbols, eliminating the need for a wall of text on all of the cards. Yes, it takes a while to understand what those symbols mean and the logic that's applied to all of the components that come in with the game. But once you do, it really does allow you to speed up the thought process, and the less text there is, the more space there is for this beautiful artwork. Which brings me to pacing, which really is about as good as you'd expect, because you're kind of taking micro turns. You take an action, you pass, you take an action, you pass. And that means that players are engaged at all times, no matter what the player count, because it's rarely far from your go again. I also really enjoy the way there are different paths to victory here. Yes, you're going to get the most points from getting places of power, but the way you can obtain monuments and even use the dragons and creatures that you can draft to gain points mean that you've got all sorts of different ways, and each game you play will be different in terms of your path to victory. The way you're mixing and matching and swapping out magic items as well really is a lovely and elegant inclusion into the gameplay experience. So this is a game that can lend itself a little bit to analysis paralysis. On the one hand, it's a min-maxer's moist sleep cycle, but on the other, that can slow things down a little bit, and the reason for that is it can get a little bit repetitive. You could also almost be jotting down notes about if I did this, then that, then this. You could just go overboard on min-maxing, and that's going to then obviously increase the downtime for other players. Also, and this may be a little bit subjective, but I just don't understand the endgame conditions. Now, for a slow burning engine builder like this, you want all of the players, even if they don't win, to be able to execute their game plan. But because the second half of this game really does become a race to victory, that means that more often than not, players are going to be left thinking, well, actually, that was a bit deflating. I tried to do something, but you just literally legged it to victory, pulled my pants down and said, yay, I won. And I think a contributing factor to that as well is the pass token. Yes, that gives you an extra point that could get you from 9 to 10 or even 10 further over the top to 11. But I'm not sure that element of brinksmanship that token brings adds anything to the experience. I think I would have rather have seen just a set number of turns. Everyone gets to try and execute their game plan, and then the player with the most points is the winner. So finishing with the look and feel and theme of the game, well, you can see how beautiful this is. They've really gone the extra mile in terms of making this an attractive product, and I can't say enough good things about it. That's brought to the fore at all times, which is then strange why the theme is so light. I mean, ultra light. You wouldn't expect this from a game of this type. There's barely any fluff whatsoever on offer, but you can help yourselves with theme with just a little bit of imagination. You can see what all of the different places of power, for example, what sort of ambience they've got and all that sort of thing.
Blah, 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 blah.
How difficult would it have been to add a backstory, and also the reasoning behind the actual mechanical functions of, again, let's use the places of power as an example. How difficult would it have been to add a little bit of fluff, add a little backstory to all of those 10 places of power, so that you know what you're fighting for ultimately. Just bringing the whole package together a little bit more. Ending on a high note, component quality across the board is of an excellent standard. I have no grumbles whatsoever for the value on offer here. So with all that being said, Dice vs Cards are going to give a final score of 7 out of 10. This is still a great game and is going to have a home for many of you out there, but it's just drawn back by a couple of niggling issues. So that's it from me. I'll see you next time.
The true alchemists do not change lead into gold. They change the world into words. Like, what the f***?